on an answered prayer right now. Our new stage is about 98% of the way done. Excuse the no-base sports. And we are just so excited, and we are looking forward to all of the worship nights, all of the worship sets that we are going to have on this stage. Our contractor, Rick, and his team worked very diligently throughout this past week to get this done, and we are so thankful. Also, this is third service now. I don't know if y'all know that, but we started our very first 8 a.m. service today. And can I just say, those 8 a.m.ers, they were awake. Like, they were worshiping. Those people were up at 5 a.m., I bet. But yeah, if you want to go ahead and stand with us and worship, we are so excited to do so with you.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, or when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, or when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. Let's sing. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. And I am not a captive to a lie. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I won't be shaken. Oh, I won't be shaken. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. This power that can break off every chain. Doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. I'm standing in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand.
anything this world can give you. It will never compare to the love of the Father.
Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Ooh. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh. And I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. And man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. Then you came along and you put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. And I'm not afraid to show you my weakness and my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. Thank you, Jesus. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Sing that again. Lord, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Sing that again. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you.
We're going to continue worshiping because we're about to take communion together. Communion is the Lord's Supper. When you walked in, you should have received this. This is like communion on the go for us. We're going to take this just a second together. So here's what's going to happen. The team is going to lead us. That's a great time to open it, peel all the papers, and do all the things that you had. This isn't a Protestant thing or a Catholic thing. This isn't a River City thing. You don't have to be a member here to take part in this. What we ask is that you would be a follower of Jesus. This is the celebration of the church. And in 1 Corinthians 11, when Paul is giving instructions about the taking of the bread and the drinking of the wine, after that he says to search your hearts so as to not take the elements unworthily. So what I would invite during this time is the team leads us to worship. But pray in your heart, Lord, is there any sin that's unconfessed? Is there an attitude in my life that I need to confess, that I need to repent of? Have I treated somebody poorly? Am I holding on to forgiveness? And give God permission to search your heart. I promise you, He is faithful and He is trustworthy. After the team leads us and after we've worshiped, I'll come back and we'll take the elements together. So hang on to the elements, search your heart, worship, and we'll come and take those together in just a minute.
If my heart is overwhelmed and I cannot hear your voice, I'll hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. If the storms of life they come and the road ahead gets steep, I will lift these hands in faith, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I'm yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high, valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I'm yours. I am forever yours. And my heart is filled with hope, and every promise comes my way. When I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humbled at your feet, I will lift these hands and praise, I will believe. And I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I'm yours. I am forever yours. A mountain high, a valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I'm yours. Love came down and rescued me.
Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high, valley low, I sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours.
Love came down and rescued me. What does that mean? So you first have to ask, what's the thing that we have to get rescued from? Brokenness, right? Like when I walk through the world and I see how my weakness and insecurity and failure and sin gets leaked out on the people around me. When I notice how my bad day and my brokenness affects my family, my wife, my kids, my neighbors, my coworkers. When I see my stuff getting visited out there, it's my brokenness causes the pain. Well, on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he went to dinner with his friends, broken, every one of them except Jesus. Peter was about to deny, everybody was about to abandon him, they were all going to get left. And in that moment, Jesus is trying to communicate the big idea, right? Like, what's the big thing? And what he said to them was, this is my body, which is broken for you. So he said, do this as often as you eat it in remembrance of me. Because within just a few hours, every single one of those people at that table was going to have to contend with, what does God make of my brokenness? Because when they abandon in fear, when they leave in anger or disillusionment, when we betray Jesus like Judas did and deny whatever, we have to ask the question, what does God do with our brokenness? Well, Jesus came unbroken, and what we're told is at that table, he gave himself to be broken for you. So when you want to know what Jesus does, there's a reason he told us to remember this. When you feel alone and abandoned in your brokenness or by your brokenness or by the brokenness of another, we remember we have a God who has entered this space. So as we take the bread together, we remember that we do not serve a God who is unfamiliar with our brokenness and need for redemption. Let's take the bread together. So here we all are, just a bunch of broken people, broken in our brokenness. And as much as it's neat to know that God understands, I need that. I need to know that God understands. But more than I need God to understand, I need a way out. I need to believe that this isn't it. That my only hope for all the rest of my life is just this unredeemed, ongoing, nonstop brokenness after brokenness after brokenness. And that's where Jesus, after supper, he took the cup and he said, this is the new covenant in my blood. So the whole thing about covenant is agreement. And our God from the beginning, from Genesis back to the beginning with Adam and Eve and with Noah and with Moses and with David, our God is a covenant-making God, which means he makes agreement that we can count on him. And Jesus said, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. As sure as Jesus was alive, this agreement stands. The forgiveness of sin, the redemption of our brokenness. That means that pain that you feel, that means every ounce of it will be redeemed and made new. But more than that, it means life. See, the reason we don't give all our blood away is because then we'd die. We'd be dead. So Jesus gives us a transfusion, an eternal transfusion. See, it's not just that God identifies with us in our brokenness, it's that God gives us a way to identify with him in life. So we take this cup as a reminder of what he offers us in himself. Let's take the cup. And as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. So Jesus, we thank you for this cup, which reminds us that our brokenness needs a Savior, that our fallenness needs rescue. And Jesus, you have come and you have identified with us in our brokenness, that you have given your life as a way out. And now as your church, we are empowered by your Spirit, by your life. That's this celebration. So as we remember you today, as we remember this celebration, I pray that we would go from this place different. I pray that we wouldn't be afraid of our brokenness or ashamed of our brokenness, but in our brokenness, every moment we would point to the one who in love came down and rescued us. This confession is that we're broken and that we are loved. So we thank you, Jesus. And we ask these things in your name and for your glory. Amen. And our confession as his church, redeemed by the broken body and shed blood of our God, our confession is, we're badly broken. Yes, you are. Grace and peace to you. You can be seated.
Good morning, church. Our reading today comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, beginning at verse 11. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has come back. He has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him?' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God."
Fattened calf. I just love that. I can't say it because I'm not from there, but it's wonderful when it does. Some of you are just glad I'm not talking about Revelation, no more beasts, no more any of that, and it's good. It's an interesting thing, though, like Revelation and this parable, these parables that we're talking about, they kind of go hand in hand. We saw Jennifer last week talked, and she talked about the parable of the sower, and she gave us like insights on how to deal with parables. Like they're teachings, they're simple teachings of Jesus, but they're intended to make a point. Like he has a purpose for all of these. And in the same way that the teaching in Revelation was the resurrected Jesus talking to his friend John, trying to show him what life in eternity was like, right? And it kind of begins with a message to the church, but the first thing really that Jesus shows John after these messages to the churches, the first thing that he shows him is the throne room, right? And he says, look, this is the seat of ultimate reality, right? Like this is where God reigns. And we said there's elders, there's 24 elders, there's thrones, there's all this seating around it. And the fundamental message of the book of Revelation is that's reality. God is on the throne reigning even today. And so we saw these pictures of what life in eternity is. Well, as we turn to these parables, the parables are pictures that Jesus tells for us to help us know what it looks like. Do you remember in the Lord's Prayer when he says, your kingdom come, your will be done what? On earth as it is in heaven. And you're like, that's weird. Thrones and angels. Like, I don't want to see any of the stuff we saw in Revelation. I don't want to see any of that in my backyard, like beasts and dragons. And I don't want any of that, right? So what Jesus tries to show us through his parables is, hey, this is how you can understand that kingdom as it operates here on earth. Here's what it looks like to be submitted and participating in that kind of world in the context of this. How do we understand eternal things in time and space? And so it's a question for us. A question as we read these parables is, who is Jesus talking to, right? Because it's a different thing if I go and give a speech at the United Nations. That's a different kind of context than if I go and if I cross the border into Mexico and give a speech in a, in one of the colonias, right? Like maybe the same speech, but different audience, different context, right? So who's Jesus talking to? Well, we come to Luke chapter 15 and verse 1, and we read that all the tax collectors and sinners were approaching to listen to him. This is pretty standard for Jesus. Wherever Jesus went, people were flocking to him. And these two groups in particular, tax collectors, right? The tax collectors were Jewish citizens who basically betrayed their own people to go and gather taxes for the Roman Empire. So they would gather taxes from their own countrymen, from their own citizens, and they would take a little bit more. So they were typically rich. They were typically rich off of the backs and the income of their own people. So they were hated by the Jewish people. And not only that were they hated by Jewish people, their participation with Rome meant it was like a religious fury, right? Like they were going against God. And these people were just drawn to Jesus. And sinners, right? So you have sin. The idea of sin is like missing the mark of the life that God has for you, right? And so his law keeps you in order, and you just go, okay, so this is how we're supposed to treat people. This is how we're supposed to respond and all this stuff, right? Well, the sinners are the ones who just said, I'll do what I want, when I want, where I want, and how I want. And the idea is, even those people, they flocked to Jesus. It's an interesting kind of question to ask. Are the kind of people who flocked to Jesus flocking to churches today? Do those people come? And if not, it's a valid question, I think, to ask why not. But I think there's kind of a tense audience as Jesus says. You've got the tax collectors and the Pharisees on one side, and then what does he say on the other side? The Pharisees and the scribes were complaining, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. So you have the tax collectors and the sinners. They're like, they just want as much of Jesus as they can get. And then you have the religious people, the scribes and the Pharisees, and they're going, well, my God would never. And so he sees this, and he sees them complaining against Jesus, and what we're told is so. And so, therefore, because of that, Jesus begins to tell stories. And he tells a story of a shepherd who lost a sheep. And he said, a shepherd, he'll leave the 99, and he'll go get the one and bring it back. And we like that. We're like, yes, fluffy for his sheep. I like that. Yeah, go get them, right? I'm like, well, the question is like, are you the one or are you the 99? Are you the Pharisees and the scribes, or are you the tax collectors and the sinners? The second story Jesus tells about this old woman, right? She's like on a fixed income, everything that she's got, and she loses a coin. It's 1/10 of everything that she has. And so he creates this sense of urgency, right? Like if you lose 10% of everything that you've got, like you go find it, you turn on the lights and you sweep the house. And there's this picture of joy and celebration when they find it. Oh, she finds her coin. She says, there is partying, there is celebration in heaven over this when she finds her stuff, and we go and do it. And so Jesus is having this conversation. Tax collectors and sinners and Pharisees and scribes and religious people and irreligious people, and they're all gathered together wondering what Jesus is going to say. And it's a lot like this, isn't it? Jennifer, as she talked to us last week, she started talking about parables, and she said the great question behind all the parables, and the question I'd ask you each time, like I won't be here for each time, but the question I would ask you to ask is like, are you listening? Right? Because Jesus over and over said, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. He didn't say whoever has ears as appendages on their head, because that's all of us, right? He says, are you listening? Are you paying attention to what I'm trying to show you? Are you paying attention to what I'm trying to get you to see in here? So for what we're going to do today, we're going to look at this parable, the parable of the prodigal son. Prodigal means like opulent, like abundant, wasteful, and extravagant, right? So we're going to see over the next couple of weeks who really the prodigal in the story is. But we're going to look this week and next week. We're going to look at the brothers today, and we're going to look at the father next week. But I'd encourage you to go slow. The fact that this is common, it's popular, it's one of Jesus' most popular and well-known parables for a reason. Because the depth of the good news that we find in this story is, it almost defies explanation. You almost want to go, there has to be a catch to it. There has to be more to it. There has to be something that we don't understand. So the question again is, are you listening to what Jesus has to say? Are you ready to hear the story in this parable? Are you ready to see the picture of the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, as Jesus wants to show it? If we're going to interpret this, and Johnny just read the whole thing, right? I'd encourage you to go home and read it again every day. Like, just read it. Get it in your bones. Get familiar with it. Know what everybody says. Try to see the looks on their face. Because the thing that Jesus wants us to see is he's got the religious and the irreligious people here. As Jesus talked about it, right? He talked about it like as an estate. And the idea is being in the kingdom with Father feels like home. Now listen. Some of you, the home that you grew up in, you're like, thanks, no thanks. I'm not interested. I'll rather do something else. I get it. And I acknowledge that. And I assume that Jesus knew that. But let me just say this. There's something about your life that you know it's not supposed to be that way. There's something in your heart that knows what home should feel like. So if you grow up with abuse or neglect, you know it's not supposed to be that way. And what Jesus does is he paints us a picture of the home. Look what he finds. He shows there's relationships there. There's relationships with the father and the son. There's relationships with the brothers and each other. There's servants there. They're hired hands. They're all comfortable talking to each other. So when Jesus talks about the kingdom, he talks about it like as an estate, as a place where there's abundant relationships. He talks about home as a place where there's provision, right? Excuse me. This is so good, right? Like, both the sons, the younger son and the older son, they knew where the stuff came from. The younger son knew, like, if I'm going to get out of here and be able to afford my lifestyle, I got to get something from dad. The older one at the end, when he's kind of whining and complaining, he's like, yeah, I had all this stuff, but you just never let me use it, right? Here's what's interesting. If we're going to make sense out of this parable, here's the thing that we have to understand. Who owns the estate? The father. This is so much like real life, right? What did the kids contribute to the estate? It's real easy. Jack squat. The little freeloaders are like throwing fits because they don't get to do whatever they want. Like, look, here's the thing. This is so important for us to recognize. And listen, those boys were entitled, spoiled brats. We know, we get it. We get looking at it, right? I'm just going to leave it at that. Because the question that I continually want to get as I come to this story is, well, which one am I? And you just got to know, if you're a Christian in here, you're both. We have tendencies towards both, right? Like, I know I'm prone to just go and, I know I'm prone to just be like, well, look at those sinners over there. You're welcome, Jesus, me and you, we got this. We'll hang in there, you got this. Lord, you okay? Because I'm good, right? Like, so we get a little bit of that. But listen, I know when I lay my head down at night, I know the thoughts that I have, and I know they're not like Jesus. I know I'm like that younger brother, trying to make something out of nothing, trying to get my way with big ideas about what it all looks like. That's both of us. I'm both. Now, I do want to say this. If you're here because somebody invited you here and you're new to this and you haven't been a follower of Jesus, the one I want you to pay close attention to is the younger brother. Right? Because that older brother, as we get to him, like we talked to him a little bit later, he's part of the family already. He's not a newcomer. And so I would invite you to kind of pay focus attention to that. But us in the church, like, we got to look at both of them, right? So what does it look like? What does it mean for there to be home? And here's the question, right? Because the story isn't about home. The story is about leaving home, right? This story is a story about one who wasn't able to even be there, just had to get out as quick as he can, and another one who, even though he was there, wasn't able to take advantage of it. He wasn't able to be a part of it. He missed the whole thing, right? So the focus isn't on the home part. The focus is, what is it that draws people away from home where Father is? Why aren't we just running to this? Right, and listen, I know, I want you to know about you because you're like me, I think, in a lot of ways, right? More often than not, my question is, right, like, how much sin can I do and still be okay, right? And I just want to say, like, once and for all, however backwards and broken I am on that, that's the wrong approach. The picture that Jesus paints is in a state that is so outfitted that there's room for just extravagant, opulent waste. Like, he can just give and give and give, and it never runs out, and he's not worried about it. He doesn't sense. This is a picture of home. So the question is, why would we leave home? Well, we're going to talk about it, but I want to say that this is the human condition. I know this because, like, I'm going to date myself with this, right? A long time ago, a band called U2, there was a song called I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, right? Everybody under 35 is, like, looking up for it right now. It's a great song, right? If you're my age, you know, you understand, right? So, Bono, he's talking about this human experience. He says, I've climbed the highest mountains. Like, I've gone through the sea. He said, I've spoke with the tongues of men and angels. I've had religious experience and physical experience and adventures, and I've gone here and I've gone there, and I've done everything in the human experience can do, but what's the take, right? I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Is that you? I mean, I know you go to work. I know you're trying. Listen, I'm not criticizing you. I'm telling you, like, you need to pay attention to that thing. Because what Ecclesiastes tells us is that he's put eternity in the hearts of man. What I mean is, you're hardwired to experience an eternal amount of joy and peace and provision and goodness and life. You're hardwired to that. In the same way that this thing is hardwired to do whatever it does to allow me to see the thing, you're hardwired for that, to experience joy and peace and the presence of the Father. That is what you're designed. And so the question is, how are we doing? Are we maxed out on our ability to experience joy and peace and provision? Are we so comfortable with what God has provided for us that we don't worry about what the economy does or who wins the elections or how we're going to do that? Are we so confident? Or, in love, is there more to this thing called being human that you're missing and that I'm missing? Because what I want to say is, I think Jesus wants to call us home. And I don't mean dead when we die. I mean here. I think he wants, because Jesus talked about stuff, right? So let's see. What are those things that draw us away? The first thing that draws us away is misunderstanding abundance. We have a misunderstanding of what abundance means. Like John 10:10, Jesus says, the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I've come that you might have life and have it to the full, right? I've come that you may have abundant life. And so we read about abundant life and we think, oh man, that's like, I gotta get more stuff. Right? Abundant. I don't, like, how many, no, like, we're like, abundance means I don't ever have to worry about the things, right? And so we see this in the youngest son, right? And so unpack this thing. He goes to the father and says, hey, give me my inheritance. Now, you know when you typically get an inheritance, right? When the person dies. So now the youngest son also, like, he's not even first in line. He's second in line. So you can imagine the youngest son that just comes and be like, hey, Dad, how are you feeling today? Close to death, I hope, because I want what's coming to me. Now, we're going to go into the father next week, but I want to point out that the father gives it to him. The father says, okay. The father hands over what the boy had asked. And so let's trace that to the end. Once he had all the money that he thought and all the property and all thing, and he could go do what he wanted. How did it work out? How did it end up for him? Very quickly, he came to the end of what he understood. He took it, and what he was left with was sorrow, disillusionment, and separation. And what I would say is, whatever it is that you're putting your hope in that's not Jesus will lead you to sorrow and disillusionment and disappointment. Can you imagine working your whole life to climb to the ladder to get to the end of the job, and then it comes time to retire and they give you a watch and send you home and replace you tomorrow? You gave your life to that. You ignored your kids for that. Is it worth it? It leaves us sorrow and disillusionment. And that's exactly what he comes home to. When that boy is sitting in the field and he's sitting there and he's a Jewish boy and he's trying to feed pigs, so it's gross, like he can't even do that. And what does he start dreaming of? Man, I wish I was home. Here's what I want to tell you, friend. Like, if you're far away from Jesus right now, that longing, that thing in you that wants it to be right, that knows that this isn't okay, that's Jesus. That's Jesus telling you, hey, come on, come home. There's enough. Just come home. See, the younger son believed that abundance was out there and he had to just run and get it. But the older one, he stayed home. But he didn't understand abundance either. What's he talking about? His dad, like, you never even killed the fatted cow. You don't even give me a goat. Dad's like, the goats. Get a goat, man. What do you want? Right? And so that's the question, right? Like, the choice is when we get what we want, when we take, right, like we go off the reservation and we end up like addicted to stuff and we end up disillusioned and sorrowful, right? But we can also misunderstand abundance and think that it's like going to a museum, like can't touch, don't look at that, don't do that. And the Father's like, eat. There's 1 million goats. There's crops in the field. What do you want to eat? And we're walking around, it's like, my God is stingy. How do you know? How do you know your God is stingy? Because you're like, because this is all my stuff and it's only this big. What if God wanted to fill this stage with stuff for you, but the problem is you're just locked into this table? What if the key to you getting a stage full of abundance is to put the freaking table here? Fill it up! You know what the secret to this is? Practice contentment. Now listen, you're not content. I know. I'm not content either. So what we do is we practice it. Do you know how to? And you know what contentment says? I'm going to need this back. Sorry. You know what contentment, right? It just says I got enough. Does it say that I'm the richest guy on the block? No, but it says I have enough. Here's a little perspective. You've made it through 100% of the worst days of your life. You've made it. What I would say is because there has been a God in your back pocket every single day of your life going, I love you, I can redeem this. I love you, I can redeem this. I love you, I can redeem this. Will you trust me to redeem this? And we're like, no, I got to save and hoard and fight and gossip and yell and do this. And he's like, just let go. And we're like, I don't know. How do we practice contentment? By giving. I mean, give. You're like, the tithe. I am not telling you to tithe. I'm telling you the tithe is only 10%. The New Testament model is they gave everything to Jesus. Because here's the thing that I want to tell you. That thing that you won't let go of. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's your money. Maybe it's a wound. Maybe it's a whatever. That thing that you just go, nope. That's the thing that you worship. That's the thing that is your idol. And that is a thing that you are a slave to. Now, for the younger son, he's a slave to his appetites. I have to do what feels good now, right? Some of you may be in that place. But some of you are slaves to legalism, right? Like what that older brother told his father was like, you let me down. I did everything that you told me, right? And so this is that coin operator, like where we think God is coin operator. We're just like, I prayed and you didn't do what I said. I gave and you didn't do my life was hard and it wasn't supposed to be, God, because I did what you told me. And this is where it's important to remember that none of those sons contributed or deserved anything. I love you so much, but you did not choose to be born in New Braunfels, Texas, sometime between 1960 and whenever you were born, right? You didn't choose to be born now instead of in Africa or in 500 BC. You didn't choose that. You didn't choose the family that you would be born to, for better and for worse. God chose that. You didn't choose your hairline, your eye color, your gifts and skills, your dental record. You chose nothing. But what I would submit to you is you were born into a world that is fully alive with the goodness of God, and you're hardwired to experience all of it. But what we have to do is practice contentment. So here's what I'm going to tell. I'm going to say give. And here's the thing. I'm not sorry. Some of you, that's what's ruining your life. You're freaked out by money. So just go, yeah, give it. And listen, some of you, you've been giving at 10% for 30 years and it doesn't take any faith and you're just fine. What I would say, listen, I'm not looking. I'm not going in and just being like, show me who has faith and who doesn't. It's not for me, it's for you. Because I want you to know. Because here's the deal. If that's what owns you, you are a victim to. Whoever gets elected in the White House sucks for you. You should opt out of that game and into a game where you're not controlled by finances. You're not controlled by fear. You're not controlled by any of that. But it begins by giving. So find a way to give. Give till it hurts. Give till it's sacrifice. Give till you go, and then see. You're like, oh, I'll have to give my house away. Well, guess what? Like if you move out of your house, guess what? Not only do you have a smaller payment, but you don't have to air condition as much. You don't have to furnish as much. What if the only thing between you and an easy life is a smaller house? I don't know. But if abundance is just more, bigger, you never get to stop. You'll never rest. You'll be dead. And Jesus, you'll get to heaven and be like, why you make my life so hard? And he'll go, I didn't. You did. Come home. The second thing is we misunderstand freedom. See, in the way that misunderstanding abundance is a misunderstanding of our relationship to stuff, misunderstanding freedom is about our relationship to autonomy, right? Misunderstanding freedom means that God won't tell me to do anything. Ultimately, I will tell myself. Right? So what we assume is freedom means that we're free from stuff, right? And it goes back kind of to our natural, like we were free from the tyranny, taxation without representation and King George and all that stuff. We were free from the oppression of the other guy. And so that kind of sticks into our craw. Like that's kind of what we see. We see it in the younger brother, right? Freedom for him was, I got to get the heck out of dad's house, right? If I can just get away from all these rules, then I'll be fine. So what he does, he takes the stuff and runs. And what he realizes when he gets out there is it's not better out there, actually. But then it's late, isn't it? Then we've gone too far, haven't we? Right? The older brother didn't understand, right? He misunderstood freedom because he literally had access to the whole estate. The criticism against that guy wasn't that you don't have, it's that you didn't take advantage of. This is the great fear and the concern that I have. Like, I worry about money. And the Lord's like, well, you might as well worry about oxygen. Like, it's not about that. Like, that's not the thing that you need to think about. What you need to be thinking about is goodness. You need to think about is mercy. What you need to be thinking about is kindness and grace and love and peace. Listen to the book of Galatians, right? Galatians chapter 5 starts with this. Galatians 5:1 says, first of all, you need to know this. It is for freedom that Christ has set you free. Listen. If you think, right, and we've heard, right, he's not here for your money. It doesn't belong to you. It's his anyway. He's not here for any of that stuff, to make your life terrible. He's here to set you free so that you could live without worry, so that you could live without fear, that you could live without anxiety, so that you could live full of joy and peace and hope and goodness and passion and purpose. You're created for all that stuff. You've got capacity for all that stuff. And I'm just like, well, I guess I can watch a little Netflix. The Astros are on. So good. Man, I'm phoning it in. My life is built awesome for the capacity to see and experience God's goodness. We were created for freedom. Now go down to verse 13. For you are called to be free, brothers and sisters, but don't use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh. Don't just go, I'm free to do whatever I want. You are free to miss the kingdom of God entirely. You are free to live absolutely beyond the provision and care of the Lord. You are free to provide yourself for yourself in a world that wants to take, and your provision for yourself will be gross and small and ineffective, and you will be anxious and weak. And Jesus says, come home. Don't use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but serve one another through love. For the whole law is fulfilled by one statement: love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out, or you'll be consumed by one another. I tell my kids this: you have to live in the world that you create. So, in Paul's words, if you create a world where you bite and devour each other, right? You know what that means, right? Like, it's gossip, it's talking about each other, it is critical, it is criticism, it is anger and hatred and separation and division. If you live in a world where you gossip about other people, you should expect a world where people talk about you. So what if, church, we just say, that's none of my business except for love and joy and peace? Unless I go to Austin and go, Austin, bro, like, I saw this and hey, I'm concerned about you. I think God has better for you this. Can I help? Can I pray for you? Can I walk alongside with you? What can I do? How can I help you and encourage you? But that's relationship. That's home, right? But if I just go, you're terrible. And I tell Connie, I'm like, Connie, have you heard about Austin? He's terrible. Friend, heaven is going to be nothing like that. That's not the kingdom, so opt out. Some of you, you know what that means? Some of you are going to have to get off of Facebook for good, because that's what's out there. And it's almost impossible. So if it's a church, we just go, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk about people. I'm not going to say anything like that. The way we practice this is called, we practice submission. That's a fun word, practice submission. Now, I know some churches would tell women in particular that they have to submit to men. Well, that's just dumb. Do you know why submission? So here's the principle of submission, right? Let's go Ephesians 5, right? Let's start in verse 22, right? Where it just, oh, you love this, right? Wives, submit to your husbands out of reverence for Christ. Period, full stop, right? Right. The next verse after that is, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Same kind of deal. But instead of going back, let's go forward. You know what the verse right before wives, submit to your husbands is? Ephesians 5:21. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Do you know why God tells, first of all, me and my wife to be careful who we marry? Do you know why God tells my wife to submit to her husband, to me, even though I'm broken and flawless? Because my mission to love her means that what is best for her is my greatest good. She can submit to me because I am more concerned for her good than she is supposed to be. I can submit to my wife because she is more concerned for my good than his. Listen, husbands, some of the reasons your wives don't trust you is because you take advantage of them, because you use their submission to do your bidding. Her submission to you is supposed to be the greatest blessing of her life. And so how you do that is like, you make sure that she is cared for and tended to and loved. You make sure that her heart is full. That is your job. Anything that you would like Christ to do for you, you make it your attention to do to her. Ladies, here's the problem with you wanting us to lead the household. It wasn't that long ago that we were idiots. A lot of us kind of still are, right? So the problem is, here's the problem. I think you're better at it than me. At all of it. At being wise, at making good decisions, at raising the kids, at cleaning that. I think you're better at it than me. So you know what you have that you can give me? Confidence. You can just say, honey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And their response is going to be like, I don't know. Just wait. Just wait. It'll be okay. Now listen, if it's illegal or unbiblical or immoral, no, we're not going to do that, right? Oh, firebomb the police station. No, that's not what we do, right? But, hey, honey, what do you think about giving or serving or traveling or downsizing? Husbands, listen to your wife's heart. What's God telling you? Ask them that question. Wives, ask your husbands, what's God telling you? And if you don't have an answer for what God's telling you, you should never pull the submit card, ever. Because she's not submitting to you, she's submitting to Jesus. Make sure you're going the right way, right? What were we talking about? Submission. Listen, the church is not supposed to be submitted to the whole world out there, but we are supposed to be submitted to each other. We are supposed to come and just say, hey, Jason, I see something different. How are you doing? That's why we talk about community groups. That's why we talk about the stuff that I see Jaime, our men's director, right? Like, we got all kinds of stuff for men. And it's not just so you can have tacos on Saturday morning. Tacos on Saturday morning are wonderful for our men's steak night and taco. Those things are wonderful. But the point is, over a taco, can I look at Shane and go, Shane, how are you doing? How's your heart, Shane? What's God saying to you, Shane? And some of you right now, the thought of that freaks you out so bad. I know, I get it. Just show up. And when somebody goes, what's God saying to you? He's saying I should just be quiet and listen right now. Say that, right? It'll work, right? Just take it in. But it should at least be a thought. See, we have misunderstood freedom and we've misunderstood abundance, but most of all, we have misunderstood love. Listen to what Jesus said. It's his last night. He'd just done the communion thing, and he says this. John chapter 15, verse 9. As the Father has loved me, I also have loved you. I want you to pause on that. Jesus says there's no difference in the way that I love you and the way that the Father loves me. So we've asked, like, what does the love of God looks like? Well, you look at the way that the Father responded to Jesus. That's what it looks like. And listen to this. This is great. And I think we've misunderstood this. My hope is maybe to redeem this a little bit for you. This way, number 10, if you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. Now, if I can guess, many of you probably read that kind of like, well, if you just keep the commandments, you'll remain in my Father's love, right? And we hear it like as a rebuke. And what do I hear that I walk away and go, well, I don't do that. I don't keep your commands. I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he recognizes the longing, right? And I think what he's saying is, if you remain in my love, the stuff will take care of itself. I think what he's saying is, hey, just look here. Because what we want to do is this. Oh my God, look, my shoes are untied, my pants are dirty, my shirt doesn't fit, I don't have any hair. And Jesus is like, right here. Right here. But Jesus, I'm bad. Right here. And pretty soon we just stop looking at ourselves altogether. Now, does that mean that my pants aren't dirty, that my shoes are untied? No, it just means that none of those things matter as much as looking at Jesus. And you know what I also believe? Sometimes I'll just be staring at Jesus. And Jesus will go, hey, you're fly. And I'll go, oh, wow, thanks, Jesus. And he'll take care of it. And it all gets better because that's what love does. Sure, it addresses the problem, but addresses the problems in good time, right? See, obedience is like the banks of a river. And the banks really are the most important part of the river except for the water. If you take the banks away from the river, you know what you have, right? One of two things. You either have a flood, which is destructive and terrible, or you have a swamp, which is just gross and stagnant, and you get mosquitoes and you get stuff like that, right? It's the banks of the river that allow the water to flow. And these banks that Jesus says, just like, hey, if you're single, I want you to keep yourself, your body, and your purity. I want you to keep it from me. And if you're married, I don't want you to go online and look at other women online because I don't want you to have any comparisons. And I just want you to be absolutely captivated by your wife. And so, like, yeah, I don't, ladies, I don't want you reading those romance novels because I don't want you to see all those, husbands that come home and do all this stuff. And like, I just want you to not have comparisons. I just want you to love your husband and respect him and show him, show him what he is, right? It's the banks. It's the giving that allows the goodness of God to flow. It's like a funnel. If you plug up the bottom of that funnel, you can hold some, but as soon as you let go of that funnel, endless supply. What if the thing that's waiting for you to experience God's love is to let go? What if the way for you to experience God's provision is to give everything that you have away and then to look and go, what? Now what? I don't know what's going to happen because Jesus doesn't want you to trust in me. He wants you to trust in him. But I know that, did I say in this service? See, this is the thing with 3 services. I forgot what I've said and what I haven't said. So I just won't. But the way that we understand God's love is to practice his presence. To practice his presence. And so here's what that means. Every time you're tempted to get on social media, grab your Bible and read it. I did not say grab your Bible and understand it, because maybe you're not there yet. Maybe all you can do is read it. So just read it. Man, that's confusing. You've read confusing stuff before, I bet. I bet, right? Every time you want to turn on the news, because what the news is going to tell you is you should be afraid because the bad guys are in control and they're going to take everything and they're going to destroy you and they're going to kill you and they're going to ruin the economy and you need to be very afraid. So what I need to look at this and go, nope, Revelation 3 is still in there. That throne is still good, so I'm good. So I'm not worried about what one of the two yahoos is going to do. I'm not even worried about that a little bit because my God is still in control and I look at him and I see him. We practice God's presence and you know what? It will fundamentally alter the way that you live. It'd be like coming home to a place where you're loved and where you're provided for and where your relationship is. And listen, it is going to cost you every single thing that you have put your hope in. Every single one of them. But it's like trading your plastic coin-operated pearls for a string of real pearls. You can't get the real thing unless you let go of the counterfeit. And we are clinging to counterfeits. So Jesus painted a picture of home for tax collectors and sinners and Pharisees and scribes and people close and people far away. Jesus invites home to rest. How would you like some rest? He didn't promise that all your problems would go away. He didn't promise that everything that you want would happen. He promised that you would be safe. He promised he would be with you. And he promised that when it's all said and done, that we would see it and call it good. Will you close your eyes for me just a second? I just want, we've got processing to do, right? This is, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. So I want to talk, maybe you're a Christian and you've been a follower of Jesus before, and I would just ask, which brother are you today? And I know we're all both of them, but which one are you particularly living in? Are you making an excuse for some behavior and you're just saying, yeah, God doesn't really care about that. Yeah, it's not that big of a dish. Sure, yeah, I call it sin, but it's not that big of a thing. It's just me. It's not I would just invite you and say, what if that thing that God is showing you right now, what if that's the key? What if letting go of that is the thing that takes all the pressure off of everything else? What if obedience in that one area is the equivalent of taking your hand off of that bottom of that funnel and just directing God's goodness and his mercy all over your life? When Jesus calls us to obedience and holiness, it is a serious call, but it's a call that he has gone ahead of us. It's a call that he's invited us into because it's for our good, and I want to invite you to say yes to Jesus. Now, maybe you're here and somebody just invited you to lunch. They're a good friend. They want to feed you. I would make them pay for your lunch. But I would just ask you, how's it going? Have you left home searching? My friend, I want to promise you that Jesus has what you're after. He knows how you were created. He knows the deepest desires of your heart, and his desire is to give you that. And it will almost certainly look different than you expect because you're not God, and he is. But he has been with you through every difficult moment that you have, and what he wants is your eternal and undivided allegiance so that he can show you his goodness now and forever. And so I want to ask, if you've never followed Jesus today, but you said, I want to come home. I want to come home. Today is the day. In your heart, we call it confession, and you just say, Jesus, I haven't gone your way. I've gone my way, and I'm done. Will you come in and lead me in the way that leads to life? That's a promise. If you would deny yourself and give your life to him, he will give, that's the cup and the communion, he will give his life to you. And I want to ask you to do one more thing. You ready? This is a big deal. If that's you today, and you just said, I want that, Jesus. I want you to come in my life, and I want you to save me, and I want you to fix me. I want you to do one more thing. You ready? I want you to get wet. Right after this, we're going to have baptism. Baptism is the public confession of faith. Baptism is where we get in the water, where we are symbolically washed It's just water out of the hose. There's nothing magic in it, but it's the act of saying, I will be obedient to what Jesus says. If you have asked him to come into your life, into your heart, and save you and redeem you, and you haven't been baptized, then today is the day. Right after this, right out the doors, you can go and be a part of that. So Jesus, I just ask that you would do business in our hearts. But most of all, I pray that this would be a place where people have come home. And may we always be a safe place for those who haven't come home yet. May we never resent their coming home, but may we celebrate. Jesus, we love you and we thank you, and we ask all these things in your name. Amen. So, hey, if you did that today, and if you just said, hey, I want that, I want to come home, will you send me this? Will you text follower? I'm not showing up at your house. I'm not going to call you. We're not going to be besties and anything like that. I just want to know what God has said to you. Baptism is right out there. Where's Joe? Joe's right back there. That's Joe. He's going to go out there. Will you stand up so that we can find you? If you want to be baptized, you can come talk to me. You can go talk to Joe. You can come up here, and this is Mitch and Marsha, and they would love to pray for you and just encourage you. So thank you for being here. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he lift his countenance and give you peace. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.